You are now listening to the sounds of Milkcrates Microphones.
Joining us right now, it is world-renowned producer, an artist from New York. He is somebody that we've been fans of for a long time. Looking forward to this conversation. Everybody give it up for the one and only BLOCKHEAD.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, man? Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Hell
This is live? Are we doing this live?
We're live.
We're live.
Oh, shit. So much pressure.
Yeah, you can't mess this one up.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, taking time out of your Friday. We appreciate it. Like I said, we've really been looking forward to this. Been fans of your music and production for a long time. You've been doing music for a long time. You started in the '90s, correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
How did that get started? Because I already seen a little something where you started a little crew and you were rapping at one point, and then you switched to just productions. Tell us a little story about that.
Well, yeah, I was rapping first in this group with like three of my close friends. We're kind of like the way shittier white souls of mischief from New York.
Yes, I love that.
of the mid '90s. We weren't good, but I met Aesop when I was in college for 1 year, and then he kind of started hanging out with us, and that was kind of getting your first taste of like a real rapper.
Yeah.
And that kind of was like, all right, well, maybe this is not for me anymore. And I'd already started, I started making beats probably in 94, 95. Yeah, around there. And I just kind of started getting better and was like, I'm better at this. I've seen what good rappers sound like now in person, and I think it's best if I just stick with the beats.
Yeah. What was it like making or just producing beats in 94, 95? Because it's got to be a world light years different than what it is now with it, with all the computer apps and shit like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was using an ASR10 sampler. I used that until like 2008, maybe. 2007, 2008. But I mean, it was great. I mean, it created my entire sound, I would say. But I mean, once I discovered Ableton, I was like, oh, this is stupid. Why would I ever use this other thing? I mean, but it kind of forced you to work within a smaller box, and the sample layering, which is something that I've always done, was a lot more difficult. I had to get really creative with it, and yeah, I mean, it was just a different time. But I will say, like, I had the machine for like. I had the SR10 for until 2002. I don't think I was competent on it. Like the beats, I would make some good beats, but I still hadn't figured out drums. I hadn't my programming was weird. I kind of got comfortable with it in the early 2000s, but I had already put out music that was made on it at that point.
Yeah.
So
it's a good starting point, a good foundation to build before you got into all the programs, Ableton, and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Bro, who were some of the earlier producers or people who were just different beats, I guess, that you heard off of tracks? Who were some of those early producers that inspired you to want to start producing?
I would say that there's Prince Paul, there's Diamond D, there's Showbiz, there's Premier, there's Large Professor, but there oftentimes it was more albums. Like Wolf in Sheep's Clothing by the Black Sheep was a really big one for me. Farside's first album was a big one for me. I'm trying to think of another one. Common Sense's second album was a big one for me. Just ones where I heard it and I was like, wow, they're doing something crazy here, and I tried to emulate it. But De La Soul's first two albums were big. Yeah, I really just I kind of zoned in on albums and heard a production style, because often those were produced by people who weren't the major guys, Black Sheep produced their own music, and Farside was produced by JD, not Dilla, but the old JD. Yeah. And those guys didn't really have much production outside of their own work. So yeah, I was really, Mumbles is another one who did AC Alone's Book of Human Language. That was a big one for me, but I was already kind of going at that point. Just guys that layered samples and sampled and had similar taste in mind. I think similar directional movements, I'd say.
Yeah. Was sampling something that you were doing early on from the get, or was that something that you learned and then kind of just fell in love with and started using?
Oh, I never didn't sample.
Yeah,
I've
okay.
always sampled. Like I don't like, I came into it as sampling. Before I even got my sampler, I would bring samples to a friend's house, and he had equipment. He'd make the beats. I'd give him samples. So it was always sampling. Yeah. Like I haven't strayed from that since.
What's that process like? Do you hear stuff like watching a movie or listening to old records, or do you go digging with that intent to find a sample?
Oh, I mean, it's changed over time, but back then I would just go to the record store and get like $60 bin records, stack them up, and just go through them and like mark down what I found on it, and then kind of go back to it later. So I'm like, oh, I need a horn. There's a horn on this, something like that. Now I do more digital digging because records. I'm not a record collector. I never was, and records are too expensive, and I'm not a collector, so it's kind of like I'm gonna throw away like $80 for like a fucking a bass line. Nah. So I have my little crevices of the internet that I find and dig for digital stuff. But it's still the same process. I'm still like just going through albums, going through songs, marking off parts. I'm very organized with it because when I sit down and make a beat, I want to know where that sound that I'm looking for is. And it's pretty efficient, I'll say.
Yeah. About how far in did you realize, I think I'm onto something, I better just keep going with this? Or were you at like a point where you're like, man, I don't know if this is going to work out, but I mean, when did you know to show somebody to be like, man, this shit's, I think's pretty hard? How did you, what really showed you that?
Well, it kind of happened organically because, I came up with Aesop, and without Aesop, nothing I don't think would have ever happened. But he came up, I did a track on his first music for Earthworms. I did a track on Appleseed, and then when it came time for his first like real big label album, Float, I did like over half of it, and that was really when I got the first shine. But I was still working a job at that point. I didn't I'd say I didn't really realize that it was actually real until I got a record deal as a solo artist, and then I was like, oh, and I was able to quit my job. I started touring. But then there was a second part where around like 2008 things started slowing down, and I was like, oh shit, I might need to get a job. And then miraculously like the music scene just kind of reinvigorated my career, and I started touring again. But I was very much like I was doing odd jobs for like a couple months, like, oh shit, I'm not qualified to do anything.
Have you ever thought about if you didn't ever even start making music, what you would have been doing or what direction you would have gone? Or was music always, this is it, all the eggs are in this basket, let's go?
No, I've definitely thought about it because I'm someone who does not have a lot of like life skills. Like I'm not a person, like I dropped out of college. I was never a good student. I'm not particularly like a great worker. I mean, I get jobs. Like I worked in the service industry, I was never like I'd probably be a bartender in all reality, but I also had interest in like writing. I had interest in acting a little bit when I was younger. So I probably would have done that. But like that said, those are two hard things to get into, kind of like music. And then music just happened to work out. But I always leaned artistic with my interests. But I probably would have ended up being like one of those like old bartenders in an Irish bar. I assume,
And that's not a bad gig for whoever is out there, holding that down.
That guy's getting tips like a motherfucker, living life, enjoying things.
For sure.
It's a chill life, it's not good for your liver, I don't think.
No, I guess you can't be drinking too much on the job. You got to slow down a little bit there.
Yeah.
Man, you mentioned Aesop Rock a little bit and how you met him in college. I just want to know, how was that first interaction with Aesop Rock, and what was it? What was the whole setting and scenario? Was it in the class and you guys had to like meet up to do some work together, like a homework project, or what was that first interaction like? And then how did you guys, spark the conversation about starting to make music together?
I don't remember our first interaction.
Okay.
I have memories of the first time like I noticed him. Like we were at a party and we were both freestyling. And I was like, who's this guy? Yeah. But I think I'd met him already. He was friends with a friend of mine who I was like, like an acquaintance of mine. I didn't take classes with him. He lived on the upper side. We went to Boston University. He lived on the other side of the campus. He was in fine arts and I was in like general studies,
Okay.
Yeah. And but I remember being at a party freestyling with him, And I think we started talking. And the thing about like that era is like, you know, this is like 94, 95. Like if you looked a certain way, people knew what kind of music you listened to. So like he looked at me and I looked at him and we're both like rap guy. And like, and we talked and then we found out we had very similar taste. And like one of my first memories ever is like meeting up with him and him like playing me something off of a 4-track. Because I knew he rapped, and you know, we knew he rapped, and I think I played him some of my stuff. I think he was gracious enough to pretend that it wasn't terrible, but like, but then he played me this like thing off his 4-track, which was like no beat. It was all just like layers of vocals on top of each other. And I remember just being like, Jesus Christ, like this is amazing, and we kind of became friends. But again, like I dropped out, he stayed, and then that summer he came to New York, and we hung out more, and then I introduced him to all my friends, and we kind of all became close with each other and just started working on music together.
Was that when you first met him, were you taken more back by his scheme and rhyming ability, or was it the voice that throws you off? Because I think it was the voice that really drew me into that sound.
I mean, my first experience with him was hearing him freestyle. And like his freestyle voice and his rapping voice, and mind you, like his rapping voice was much different then it changed. Yeah. He sounded a lot more like Saphir back then. Like he kind of like he was still kind of finding his own legs of like originality, but like he had this like very powerful deep voice, but like it was his freestyle skills that were just crazy. Like he was so much better than everyone else. You know, like I'd freestyle, I'd fuck up, I'd say a funny line every like 16 bars, but it was mostly like, and you know how it goes. Like I'm just trying to like keep it going. Yeah. And he would just, it sounded like writtens, and like complex writtens. Granted, it was like mumbo jumbo. It was like scientific, medical, you know, like all that shit. But like it was, but at the time that was fucking crazy sounding.
Insane.
Again, 94, 95, this was a much different time in hip hop. So I would say just his overall skill set. And how just what a natural he was. Yeah. With everything. You know?
When you talk about freestyle too, we're talking off because I mean I think through time now, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, how that word freestyle has kind of got mixed up and
as a written.
Yeah, and it can be a lot of different people, even on the East Coast where you're from, they say that it's a free written or whatever. It's something that's never been recorded, but
I don't
fuck with that. Yeah.
No, freestyle's off the top of your head.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of where we've always been and where we stood was freestyle's improv on the spot, off the top of the head, you know, and just trying to scheme your way through bars.
Right. Otherwise, it's just it's a verse. I mean, it's fine if you go on a radio show like that. Remember that Black Thought like 8-minute verse he did?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like one of the most impressive like feats of rapping I've ever seen. But it was written. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely written, and people are like, "It's off the head." I'm like, no one is that good off the head. Like the best off the head freestylers are still kind of boring to listen to.
Yeah, after a while, especially after time, after 8 minutes, you get repetitive almost. Where you could tell that, yeah, exactly. When you go that long, that it's still an impressive feat to be able to remember all that and put it together.
Like I said, it was like the most impressive rapping feat I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I like just 8 minutes nonstop, didn't blink. Like he's just, you know, zoned out.
Yeah.
Just going back to Aesop Rock, we'll jump into the new album, The Ox, and all the new stuff you've been doing with Billy Woods and that whole crew, which has been fucking excellent. But just going back to Aesop Rock a little more, you guys, you know, kind of went your own ways for some time. Aesop Rock's been doing so well producing his own stuff that he's been doing his own album producing. But what made that reconnection happen for Garbology come about?
Well, I mean, we've always stayed close. We stayed friends. We didn't stop talking at any point. And I'd done some remixes for him. And really, I think it was the pandemic. Like we were just kind of both holed up, and he was like, "Hey, you got any beats?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I sent it to him. It wasn't like the first time I had sent the beats in like years, you know. But I was just like, "Yeah, sure." And I sent him, and then he made one song, and then he made another, and it kind of you know snowballed from there. And it just turned into an album. Like I don't think we didn't, like we're 5 or 6 songs in and had no intention of what it was going to be. We're just kind of, you know, holed up in our houses making music. When he kept making songs and until we eventually had Garbology.
When making beats, does his sound sometimes tailor the way your beat sounds in some way, or vice versa? Your beat tailor his sound, you feel like?
I mean, he's pretty versatile, but like I mean, when making beats, I don't make them specifically for him. I just make beats and then give him a pack, and he'll pick out, there's definitely sometimes I'm like, I think you'd sound good on this beat. And then he'll pick a beat that I would never expect him to pick. So like I really don't, you can never tell what's going to inspire a rapper, and like whatever gets them writing, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
That you can really do. But I really, you think you get it, and then you think, I'm like, oh, I know what he likes. And occasionally it will, like on the Garbology, like that beat of the song The Sea. When I send that to him, I'm like 100% chance he picks that. I knew he would. But then there's other ones where I'm like, I'm shocked he picked that. But it's cool because I like when he picks things I don't expect.
Yeah.
The album is just super well put together and just has its own uniqueness for each track too. Like no beat's the same. Are you constantly just creating beats and creating, like, do you walk down the street and hear noises, and are you putting together like an instrumental in your head?
No, I mean, I go through prolific eras and I go through lazy eras. Like the last, I don't think I've made a beat in like 3 months right now because I've been working on album. I'm working on a solo instrumental album right now, and that's all comprised of beats that I already made. So I'm kind of like, so I haven't been making new stuff, but like when I do make beats, I'll make every day for like a couple weeks, then stop. It's very like I get kind of obsessive about it, and then I just totally fall off. But I gather. I'm a hunter gatherer when it comes to beats.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You can never have too many, for sure. That's definitely a good deal.
No, yeah. There's always rappers.
When you're creating a beat, do you keep the conscious thought that you're trying to stay a little true to that East Coast New York sound, or are you like, I have my own Blockhead sound now and I'm just trying to stay true to that?
Oh, I don't even consider anything like that. I mean, like I think I have natural leanings, but then again, I try to like stop myself sometimes when I feel like I'm doing something too much.
Yeah.
And like if I'm have like 5 beats in a row that I've made that all have like kind of break beats, and I'm like, let me not do a break beat, let me do something different this time. And I try to have some versatility in my sound, but like my sound is very specific. I mean, like, East Coast boom bap or not, like it all comes down to the samples and the layering and like kind of how I make these like changing these beats. They kind of like evolve and change as they go.
Yeah. And
that's kind of the one thing I always do. But as far as like, what it sounds like is and what genre it could be pushed to, like I fuck with trap drums. I fuck with, I fuck with 808 kits and I fuck with break beats. Like it really depends on the song,
Yeah.
And I was gonna say that too. Listening to the list of producers that influenced you coming up, it was such a wide range of different styles and from different sides of different areas of the country that you can tell that in your beats, in your instrumentals. There's so, like he was saying, there's so much variety in them, and from the samples and stuff like that. So you're doing a good job of keeping us interested, like you said, and keeping us guessing.
Trying.
Yeah.
Dude, new album, The Ox, just dropped recently. Super dope, man. It was put out on Backwood Studios, which is Billy Wood's record label. Is he the CEO of that, or is that just his main label?
He's one of the 2 guys that runs it.
Okay.
There's 2 guys that he's the founder, I'd say.
When did you cross paths with Billy Woods? Which he's a great artist in his own right.
Woods is incredible, and like, and I think like as time goes on, like he will be viewed as one of the better writers of all time, as far as like just on a lyrical, poetic, deep level. He's a really amazing writer and a great rapper. But I met Woods, I had heard him maybe, I'm bad with years, but I had heard him on this mixtape that he made right before History Will Absolve Me came out. And I realized we had friends in common, and I happened to run into our friend NASA on the street, and I asked him about Woods, and he was just like, oh, yeah, you should work with him. He'd love to work with you. I was like, oh, word. And at that time, I was working with I was really trying to go out of my way to work with different rappers. Like I had a project with this guy Illogic, and I had a project with this guy Mark Speck, where I was doing like producer albums with rappers that I liked.
Yeah.
And so I started just shooting the shit with Woods, and I sent him some beats, and similar to the Aesop thing with a Garbology, like it just kind of snowballed into an album. Like it was just like, oh, we'll make an EP. Oh, now we have 10 songs. Oh, now we have 15 songs. It just kind of like it just happened so naturally that it was, we were like, fuck it, let's do it. And we also got along really well on a personal level. Like he and I just became kind of fast friends. So that was, I don't know what year that was, but we made Dour Candy together, which is the first album we did together. And then a couple years later, we made Known Unknowns. But I've been in the mix with Backwoods. I put out an instrumental record with them. I put out Free Sweatpants, which is kind of like the precursor to the Aux.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I've always been in their little cipher since I met Woods, pretty much.
Yeah,
Off the aux, Mississippi is so hard. Just to let you know, like that whole build up, the whole let me show you how to spell it, like that whole, it's just sick as fuck. So I give it up for that shit. That shit's tight.
I wanted that song to sound like a 1991 rap song.
Well, you nailed it. You nailed it for sure.
Like it has the vibe. It's kind of kooky. It's like kind of silly, but it's got like the hard break beats. Yeah, like it really. And Aesop delivered with like.
Oh yeah.
It kind of reminded me of like a something you'd hear in 1991.
Yeah, it's super dope.
You talked a little bit about kicking it off with Billy Woods on a personal level and having a good friendship, and that's, I think, a very important part of in a creative space is if a producer and MC are working together, you got to see that they're having fun together, right? Like seeing people have fun together, it kind of translates and makes it more relatable for the listener. You also talked about working with Illogic. We've been lucky enough to talk to Illogic a couple times. What was that like working with him? Because he seems like a really, really relatable and easy to get to guy.
No, Illogic is like the nicest guy ever, and I had known Illogic for probably since like 2000 maybe. We did. He was on a couple Aesop songs way back in the day, and I did a couple songs with him that never got released, but that eventually got released. And he just hit me up one day. He was like, "Hey, you want to do a project?" And I was like, "Sure." And again, another thing where I send him beats, and all of a sudden we have like 3 albums worth of music. Where he was, I mean, the thing I'll say about Illogic that separates him from those other guys is like he was so prolific with his writing. Like he was literally turning in like 12 songs a week. And like, I mean, like I could almost not. I was like, dude, I'm out of beats. Like I have no more beats left. But he, so we made 2 EPs. I think maybe 2 or 3, 2 EPs, and then Capture the Sun, which is the LP.
Yeah.
And it's. I think all that stuff is really good, and I kind of think that Capture the Sun gets overlooked a little bit because it didn't get a fanfare. But like, I think it's a really, really good album.
Yeah.
Logic's like an incredible rapper.
Yeah, I enjoy all those albums, that whole little compilation, and everything that he does as well. But putting you guys together, it was like hearing that, it's a perfect mix. And sometimes when you get that, like I said, I think it's also when 2 people enjoy working with each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And it's easy to work with too. Like there's no head bumping. Not that there really ever has been head bumping with any shit, but with Illogic it was we have similar temperaments,
Yeah.
Just going back to the Ox, I know this album was special for you and different than your typical album. It's every song has a featured artist on it. The Blockhead albums I'm used to are more instrumentals only, which I love too.
I love my favorite.
But this is a little different, and I know you've been wanting to put out an album like this for a while now. How did you go about picking the artists that were on the tracks?
Well, I mean, half of them are people I know who I was like, I want this person. And then the other half were, I made a list. Woods executive produced it. So we kind of worked on it together, but we kind of just made a list of people of who we could get. Woods being who he is and having a lot of connections with rappers, he was able to kind of reach out to people and get them involved that I probably wouldn't have been able to do. And just kind of whittled down, and then it came to the point where we had to kind of figure out who we wanted to rap with who, and we made the pairings and stuff like that. And Woods and I did that together. Woods had some, Woods came up with a couple of them on his own for sure. It's just because it was kind of just a wish list of rappers that I'm a fan of currently, and also like new guys that I like that I think need more shine.
Yeah, I like that. I like that when there's some artists on there that you maybe have heard of, but not necessarily have heard too much of their work, and it allows you to be more exposed to them, So I like that.
Yeah. Give them a little push.
How special of a process is naming an album for you? Like Music by Cavelight, man, one of my favorite just instrumental albums ever. I would say,
yeah, definitely.
Dope album name. How do you come up with an album name such as The Ox or Music by Cavelight?
The Ox was honestly Woods' idea because I didn't know what the fuck to call this thing. 'Cause I was ready to call it Free Sweatpants Part 2, but he's like, Free Sweatpants doesn't really need to have a part 2. And I was like, fair enough. But I generally with my instrumental albums, song naming and album naming are kind of like the most fun part. Well, not album naming is kind of there's a pressure to it, but song naming is like the most fun thing in the world. But with this one, Woods came up with the Ox, and I was like, that worked. And it just immediately I was like, that's a great idea because this album is someone's Ox, someone with the Ox. It's me controlling the Ox pretty much. But for the most part, like I probably named like 3 or 4 of the songs on the album, and you can usually tell which ones I named. But and then the artists named themselves. When I gave them the option, I gave them the name option,
Giving them creative control.
Yeah. But if they didn't respond, I'm like, all right,
I'm naming it.
It's my turn to take it.
That's a dope album cover too. Just all the fucking wires and shit thrown everywhere. Big mess of wires.
Anytime I think of you, I always think of just that random at the very end, Cartlander. It's image of a glass man. And another day I was hell fucking bored. I was just chilling at work, and I just got in here and I go, I'm gonna look up image of a glass man. I looked it up and it says Cartlander. It does. It's
Do you want to know where it's from?
Yeah. What's that from?
Oh man, so that's from a Cool Keith interview on Stretch and Bobbito's show from like '92.
That's crazy.
Where Cool Keith is just bugging out, and he's talking about this comic book he created, which didn't exist. He was just lying. He was just making it up. but I had this like 7-minute thing of Cool Keith talking that was like one of the funniest things ever to me. And that was my first album, so I had all this like material gathered up over the years. I was like, when I make an album, I'm using this, and like that, I was like, how do I use this?
Where do I put it?
And I just kind of just put it at the end of that song because I was like, fuck it, let's.
It's so sick.
Let's have some fun.
Are you ever watching movies and hear something and you're like, I fucking mark that. I need to sample that.
I hear things, but I forget to mark them, and I never see them again. There's a lot of, like, my name's Tony, and I hear a lot of Tony samples sometimes. I'm like, oh, that would be good, but I can't inundate like an album with like Tony samples.
Hey, Tony.
Can only have so many Tony samples.
They're all mafia ones. Why are all the mafia samples?
Exactly. Yeah, it's all mafia.
It's all Tony, pass me the grits. Tony spaghetti. It's all that.
Exactly.
Dude, Blockhead, your name, is that like a homage to Peanuts and Charlie Brown, or where's Blockhead come from?
It was an era of self-depreciating names, and like I have a big head, and I just figured, and I was rapping at the time, so it was more my rap name, and then it transferred to producing. But it's just like the Gumbies and the enemies were the Blockheads. It's Charlie Brown, Gumby kind of thing, but like it was initially like Fat Lip, Blockhead.
Yeah.
It was in that realm of thinking,
Yeah.
Big head, big brain, man. That's what they say.
Yeah, that's true.
Tell them.
The bigger the head, the bigger the brain.
I'm telling people that forever.
Bro, Labor Day is one of my favorite albums of all time. I mean, Daylight, a timeless track, bro. Just how was it making that album? Do you remember anything about making that album with Aesop Rock or producing a good majority of it?
We made it on a digital 8-track. Every beat was 2-tracked off the sampler, meaning like it was not mixed on a mix. Like it got a shine up, but like the tracks were not individually mixed. So like that's why some of the drums sound the way they do. Like it was very like rough around the edges the way we did it. It was. It was a long time ago. I kind of remember playing him the Daylight beat for the first time. And I thought that beat was corny, and I thought he'd think it was corny. He's like, "I think I could do a song to this." I was like, "Really?"
Yeah.
And he did, and I was like, and I remember being like when we chose the sample, the vocal sample, I was like, if we're gonna be corny, let's go all the way.
All the way in, yeah.
Let's go. Like yes, y'all, you don't stop. Like let's take it to the the moon with corniness on this shit.
Do you, when you hear it back, do you still feel that way, or do you hear it in a different light now?
I mean, I'm unbelievably sick of that song, so I can't even hear it.
I'm sure.
You know, it's one of those songs. You know, it's been around for 20 plus years, and I get its appeal. I mean, like I always got its appeal. Like when I made the beat, I was like, there is something about this that is cool and different, and like it grabs you. It like emotionally grabs you. And then like once Aesop did kind of the singing hook, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, he leaned into. We both leaned into it, and I think that's kind of
that helps.
Made it work,
I think that definitely helped it for sure.
How was it like when you were meeting? How did that connection with you and Murs come together?
Murs, I mean, I met him when he got signed to Def Jux, and I remember thinking like, Murs is like the coolest rapper I've met. Like I remember thinking like he is, and I don't mean like he's cool like the Fonz wearing sunglasses. I mean like he is like I immediately liked him. Immediately like was like, this guy is awesome, and I got along with him great. I've only hung out with Murs maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, but I've always like off the bat loved Murs. As a person, I was like, yeah, this guy's the best.
Yeah.
Actually, like almost I saw him in an airport. I didn't know it was him, and I messaged him. I was like, yo, are you in Denver right now? He's like, yeah. I was like, where are you? I was like, I just boarded the plane. I was like, oh shit.
I just saw you.
That was the last time I saw him, maybe like 5-6 years ago.
Dour Candy came out in 2013, actually, so it's crazy. About over 10 years ago, man, a decade.
Yeah.
So you and Billy Woods been making music together for a good while. Is this a relationship that will maintain, and you think you'll continue creating music and art in general with Billy Woods? Is this something that's long lasting?
I don't see why not. Yeah, of course. I mean, like, you know, he's got the lifetime pass to my beats if he wants them. If he ever needs anything, I'll do it. And I kind of feel like he's the same way with me. Like if I ever need a verse from him, he'll do it. You know, we're just kind of we're on that level with each other.
Can I ask you a serious, like a personal question here?
Sure.
That's scary when someone says that.
Right?
When Aesop, when you hear Aesop give you like, hey, this is the song, this is what I wrote to it, and you hear it back, do you get all the metaphors he's spitting out, or does it take you? He has to kick you and be like, well, this is what I meant by that when I said this.
He never explains his songs to me. I never try to understand them off the bat. I like when he sends me a song, I'm more just thinking about the sequencing and how to frame everything. And like with Garbology, I feel like I understood that album better after it came out than when we were making it. When it came out, I was able to step away from it and listen to it as a fan, kind of, and I was like, oh shit. I mean, like, granted, like he always has these like really crazy lines that you're just like, wow, that's some next level shit. But like as far as like the entirety of a song, unless it's like a glaringly obvious topic, like sometimes it takes a bunch of listens to really get it, and I don't think he expects me to really understand it.
Yeah,
I'm just following up on it because there's a lot of people out there who just want to know, from a standpoint, where you stood with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I think as he's gotten older, he writes way more concisely, and I think he's doing a lot of more stories. He's doing topical songs that you may not really understand until you kind of take a moment. You're like, oh shit, he's talking about that. Whereas back in the day, like, I think he did that as well, but there was also songs that were just like him flexing and like flexing vocabulary.
Wordplay, yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure if he meant to be saying anything that deep on those songs.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking Float, Labor Days, or like early stuff.
Yeah.
Was None Shall Pass the album that you worked on with him prior to Garbology? Was it that long?
Yes.
Okay, that long. That was a good little hiatus. And it's great.
Like over 10 years.
Yeah,
and we've done stuff here and there, like little songs.
Yeah,
he'd done stuff for me, but as far as like albums,
for sure, it's crazy to also just witness the evolution of both you and him. Just artistically, man, just another level.
And then coming back together and clashing with
man.
after you, it's like you guys evolved and then came back, evolved and made Garbology.
I think that was the fun of it, though. You know, like
Yeah.
we're kinda like, oh, but it's funny. Like if you read reviews of that album, it's like, oh, it's just Aesop and Blockhead.
Right.
Aesop and Blockhead. I was like, man, if you think this sounds like Labor Days, you're insane.
No, yeah,
Insane. Yeah.
Garbology is
Yeah.
great. I think it grows on you a little more as time goes, and you listen to it more.
Yeah.
You know, I love it more today than I did the first day it came out.
Oh man, Wolf Piss is amazing.
Oh hell yeah, jazz hands.
Yeah, come on. Wolf Piss is crazy. That beat is fucking nuts. So I mean, come on now.
That was one he picked that I was like, oh, he's gonna pick this one.
Come on,
That's-
Tony.
I knew it.
Come on,
That's a
Tony.
You're coming up on 30 years of producing music,
Jeez.
and
That's impressive.
that's insane. Coming up on 30 years in the music industry, what have you done in this time frame to avoid the burnout that a lot of artists get into, and because you've stayed highly productive as well. It's not like you've sat back and taken years off. Like you said, you're taking 3 months off, but you're still working on an album. What do you do to avoid that burnout?
I think that I have a good work-life balance. Like my social life is so separate from my music life. Like I have music friends, but like the people I hang out with are like my friends who I grew up with, who I've known for 30 plus years. And that helps. I think never assuming that you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, by good, I mean like that you're stable.
Yeah. Never
And
being
it-
content.
And just like, I enjoy doing it, and I've been able to do it, and I'm not blind to how lucky I am to be able to do this. So like, I appreciate that I get to do this, because the idea of having a real job would be the worst. And I like to think that, that lights a fire under my ass. But I also I really am my most prolific when I'm bored. And like, so if I'm bored, I'm making tons of shit. Like Pandemic, I made like the most music I've ever made in my life in a year and a half,
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. Like I don't get wrapped up in the business of it. I don't take it that seriously. Like I do what I do, and I'm not unaware of like my limitations as far as like what my fan base can be. Like I know what my ceiling is in a sense, and I just kind of want to make music that I like. And that's it. It's pretty simple. Yeah, I'm not like a complicated person. So
Yeah.
I think that probably helps.
That
I
makes
don't have a lot of self-doubt.
that makes sense too. You keep it kind of simple, and it never kind of blows up or gets over your head. But we're very thankful and very grateful that we were able to chat with you, and not only just chat with you, been able to listen to your music over the years. Almost 30 years, dude. That's a fucking crazy feat.
Wait, does it count? I mean, you said in 30 years of the business. I was like, man, I don't think I was in the business until like 90.
We're gonna say 94. We said 94. It's 94.
94. If I got my sampler, that was it.
Yep,
I got
that's true.
Fucking A. You're in the business.
You
You
got your
got a
foot
sampler.
wet.
You're in the business.
Once you get the receipt, you're in
Well,
the game.
You got your foot wet. Before we go, Blockhead, music making, obviously your number one love, maybe aside from family and all that. But what's your second favorite hobby that you have besides music?
Probably playing basketball.
Okay.
But I've been injured this whole year, so that I've had that taken away from me. Now I've had like a bulging disc in my back that's just been kicking my ass this whole year. So it's like, but like
Back injuries are
the
the
thing that
worst.
gives me the most joy is like playing basketball. When I'm healthy, I play like 3 times a week, and
Nice.
and with a bunch of old men.
What position?
You running pickup games at the gym, or are you playing in an actual like
We have
adult league?
organized pickup games. Like
Okay.
when I was in high school, I was a power forward. Because I was I'm 6 feet tall, but I could jump really high.
Mhm.
And then the older I get, the better I've gotten at shooting and passing, and the worse I've gotten at jumping. So I'm now like a Lamar Odom passing 3 kind of. I can run the point, but my handle's not great. But I can run the point, and
He's like Woody Harrelson.
You get aggressive in the box.
Woody Harrelson.
in semi-pro.
No, Woody Harrelson on A White Man Can't Jump. He's out there hustling.
Okay.
He's hustling out
Hey,
there.
who's your team, Blockhead? We're out here lighting the beam over here. Who's your team?
I mean the Knicks.
Okay, yeah, I
I didn't
figured.
know if you're a Nets or a Knicks.
Oh,
You gotta
no,
go Knicks, right? Come on.
Before
What kind of question is
we
that?
like the Nets.
Come on, bro.
Before you go,
Last
here.
question. Last question.
Before you go, what does hip hop mean to you? In a quick synopsis, 30 seconds. If you had to give it to me, what's it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I don't know. I mean, I can't say I think of it in those terms really. I mean, like it's like this all-encompassing thing that I've been immersed in for the majority of my life, where it feels like second nature. You know, it's just like this second nature that I mean, granted, I don't break dance, I don't do graffiti, I don't DJ, but I've never not felt, you know, surrounded by it in my adult life. I mean, it means a lot. It gave me my job. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of it. That's like asking, like, what's the meaning of life?
Yeah, what's the meaning of life?
Bro,
Yeah.
I love a good 8-bar verse, but I take a lot more interest in producing. Thanks for all the timeless tracks that you've created, my friend.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for your contributions to music in general, and to our contributions to our childhood as well. Growing up in high school, we were listening to a lot of Float was my first introduction to you, so I'm very grateful for the music and the time I spent listening to you. So thank you so much for sitting here and talking with us. It means a lot to us.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure.
we'd love to have you back on next time. I know you're working on something new, so when you release that new shit, we're gonna hit you back up because we want to talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be an instrumental album, and it won't be out till like a year from now.
Perfect.
but keep an eye out. Keep it.
We're gonna be waiting for it because we're excited to hear it.
Awesome. Thank you,
Awesome.
guys.
Once again, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Give it up for Blockhead.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, brother. We appreciate you.
Peace, man.
Peace, bro.
Later.